Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life of Emerald presents Sacred Healing Summit. Today's topic is about coping, home, family, and mental health during COVID-19, raising emotional intelligence. We help corporate workers worldwide reduce stress by providing strategies using conscious media on how to take care of the mind, body, and soul health with world-class leaders. We have sacred guests here. But first, let me introduce our 7-year vision. We are here to speak about depth psychology, tackling conscious mind, subconscious mind, and unconscious mind. Welcome. Our first sacred speaker is Dr. Keren. Dr. Keren is a keynote speaker, consultant, and thought leader in 21st century leadership. The founder of the consulting firm Wisdom to Lead, she specializes in development of senior management teams and corporate leadership. She guides companies and senior management teams to reach their full potential using various techniques in the field of mindfulness. Our second sacred speaker is Paul Sterling. Paul is a sought-after couples coach, an international public speaker on love and relationships, and is the best-selling author of Argue Less, Love More, which was #1 with both couples and counselors. His video Tantra, Exploring Sacred Sexuality, has been viewed more than 6 million times. He helps couples communicate better and deepen their intimacy and bring back their loving feeling. Our third sacred guest speaker is Dr. Manijeh Motagi. Dr. Manijeh is an international speaker, UCLA certified mindfulness teacher, and corporate trainer. She has over 10,000 hours of practice and training in mindfulness and Buddhist concepts. She has a doctorate in psychology and doctorate in psychology of management consulting. She is an expert in transforming her students and clients to an extraordinary level. And I am Kate Lee. I am a healer, storyteller, and social entrepreneur from Seoul, Korea. I have 15 years of teaching experience, including educating STEM college graduates sponsored by the South Korean government. My ancestors are kings of South Korea of the Joseon dynasty, and the scholars of the noble class and kings in the Shilla dynasty. Let me pop out of the screen here, and wow, we have many guests joining us. Welcome, welcome Dom, welcome Jen, welcome Shanira. Oh, nice to see you. So, hello, sacred speakers, Dr. Keren, Manijeh, and Paul. Welcome. So everyone, I'm going to ask our panelists a few questions about the importance of learning about emotional intelligence. Also, how do we cope well about home, family, and mental health during COVID-19? So this question is for Dr. Keren and Paul. What does it mean to have a good emotional balance when working remotely, surrounded by family and lack of boundary?
Well, who do you want to go first?
Dr. Keren, could you start, please?
Yes, sure, thanks. So first of all, in order to create balance, we need to create boundaries and routines in order to navigate these challenging times. So my advice would first of all, to put decide in advance, like when we're working remotely from home, decide in advance when we are creating a time for a meal time with our family and kids, and not set meeting during this time. So we really need to be able to manage our time in order to be productive and also be to have a time with our family and to navigate this time great. So if I'm working in a company, I won't take meetings between the lunchtime and dinner time and be with my kids. And then I can be fully with my work at home. And another thing is to create a transition gaps, okay, between meetings. Usually we have a lot of meetings, and you need to take 5 minutes gap between the meetings in order to come fresh to our new meeting. Otherwise, we can come really tired and won't be mindful and present with the meeting. So we need to find these small times. Beyond that, we need to find time for ourselves in order to fuel ourselves. It can be meditation for 10 minutes, going outside to nature, meeting with a friend via Zoom to speak a little bit, because we need this time and energy. Otherwise, we won't have energy to bring ourselves fully and be present. Another important time when working remotely with kids at home, it can be really challenging. You know, I can have a really important meeting and then my kids are fighting behind my back. So it can be a little bit challenging. So I think what's important most is, first of all, to speak with my kids and tell them, look, I have a really important meeting, please don't interfere, but it will not always work, right? So they start fighting, I should be authentic with my colleagues and tell them, look, I have a challenging situation right now. Is there any chance that we can postpone the meeting in 5 minutes? Even if there is a chance, that's great. And if there's not a chance, only the fact that I was authentic and present with my challenges, they can be empathic toward me and I can be more present with it. I can say, okay, this is the situation right now. I'm sorry for the screaming there, but this is the best I can do. And then I can be more present with the situation. So I really invite people to be authentic with the difficulties and speak their hard emotion that they are feeling right now in order to connect in a deeper level and work with what we have instead of fighting it and putting it aside. So this is my small tips. How can we handle this challenging time? But I think the most important thing is also to find time for ourselves, because we don't do it usually. And it's important because if we don't have energy, we won't be able to bring this energy to our family, to our work. So this is my 2 cents.
Well, thanks, Dr. Karen. You know, I can really resonate with, you know, accepting conflict or challenging times as is and being honest with, you know, our conflicts as part of life and just letting it be freezes up a lot of that energy of trying to hide it. And we can invest that energy into being proactively engaging in the activity that we're doing right now, right? So everything is sacred, everything, let it be. And taking care of ourselves is important.
And another small thing that to continue what you're saying, it's really important to recognize what we're feeling in this moment and to be able to speak it loudly and to speak the emotional language. We don't speak it usually. To say, you know, I'm really scared right now. I really don't feel comfortable with the situation. To speak our experience, and then people can react to us in a deeper level and not judge us and not try to figure it out. Just be human. I think this is the most challenging part for us because we don't need to understand. We don't understand what we are feeling a lot of the times, and then we can't name it. So this is a great practice for us to try to understand what I'm going through right now and to try to give it a name.
I love that. And there's a scientific evidence to benefit of naming our emotion. Paul, what do you think? What does it mean to have a good emotional balance when working remotely, especially we're dealing with people?
Well, what Dr. Keren said was great, because right in the middle of that, the dogs in the background, I had to mute myself because the dogs started barking at the house. And I'm like, perfect example. So what I want people to think about is this is not normal times. If you know what dog years are, 1 people years is 7 dog years. And 1 COVID month is like a normal year or 2 years where people spend more time together in a single month than they do normally in a year or 2 years. And they need new skills because they used to be able to go and play more and get out more and get more social things. And right now, more of our needs need to get met by the inner circle, our family, our friends, our kids. And we're under a lot more stress. So it's really, I love what you were saying about taking care of yourself, making time for meditation, yoga, exercise, things you can dissipate the stress of. Maybe you're now not only working, but now you're teaching your kids, or you're at least monitoring their homeschooling or all the rest of it. And it's really important to come to some agreements about how things are going to be done. What are the boundaries? What are the standards? What are the rules around the house? And if you have kids, include them in setting up the rules. So it's not top down, we're the boss, you have to, but that they get included. So there is playtime, there is time to be together, there's intimate time, there's date night. And that's another part that's hard if you're not going out, but to make sure that you have time with your spouse and actually start building your emotional muscle. Because if you don't go to the relationship gym, you're going to have flabby muscles. And there's a bunch of distinctions about different emotions, and men especially have not been taught emotional dialogue. And it's really important to know what you're feeling and be able to talk about it and be powerfully vulnerable. And the work of Brene Brown is really profound. When I'm working with clients, I'll have them, one of the first things I do is have them go through the whole work on vulnerability, and so that we can connect from the heart. So that's it as the intro. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Wow. I can, my heart's warming up now that you guys are sharing about, vulnerability, also setting clear boundary. Also, when you're talking about setting a boundary, I am reminded to really keep that boundary myself. So if I am communicating with others, keep this boundary, if this is my boundary, then I have to also apply that myself so that the message is very clear. And I love that particular, we need emotional, it's an emotional gym, something like that. We need a lot more tools nowadays. And it's a great time to gather tools and listen to this type of dialogue in order to, dissipate these energies that we haven't had the chance to deal with creatively before. So now I would love to jump into the second question. I would like to bring us to a more vulnerable space and speak about grief. And this question is for Dr. Manijeh. Dr. Manijeh, how can we process grief mindfully? I remember 2020 was not easy year for most of us here. And how do we process grief? Could you guide us?
Yes, so grief, is a very, very delicate emotion, a very delicate experience and process, So, and all over the world, people experience or express or feel it differently. They go about it differently. Somebody who is, the same person has passed away, the father may grieve by wanting to watch all the videos of that person, for example, to remember, to keep it alive. And the mother is going to die if she saw a picture of that, the child, or vice versa, or very differently. So it comes down to a few things. One is, first of all, about emotions. Emotions are recent brain science shows that emotions are mental activities. They're not heart activities. They're attached to stories, to things which we think about. It's a mind activity, and it's not a very reliable source for telling us the truth of things in general with any situation. And then there is the feeling. Feeling is very physical. Feeling comes, the brain tells us there's something wrong, some kind of a budgeting is off. You need to pay attention to this, feeling uncomfortable or comfortable, to kind of sort of do something about it. And so with grief, I went through extremely intense. I lost my son, and that is on the, you know, priority or on the high level of experience. Is, I would say that losing a child is top of the line, at least one of the top of the line. And so, because of the practice of mindfulness that I have, I was able to, while going through it, experience tsunamis, and be with it and be in the middle of the tsunami. Who can prevent a tsunami? Nobody. A hurricane, nobody can prevent it. The first 35 days, Kate, I fainted every day, basically. My brain would shut down. It couldn't, do anything. But I was there watching it too. And when I was watching this immense amount of discomfort and pain, I understood something very deeply about it. I understood this is not a bonding of a mother and child. This is not emotional attachment. This is physiological. It's neurological. It's every cell in my body has lost. My hair cells have lost because they share with this child, right? It's not a hard thing. I mean, literally, I remember for the first year, I felt like I have the COVID now, I could say, At the time, I would say I have the flu or something. It just doesn't go away. And so just being there and watching it and feeling it, something very, very deep opened. And that was my own heart of compassion for myself, you know, for myself. That no, I mean, prior to that, I remember during his funeral, I made a vow. I said, I will not be the mother who's done. Because prior to this, I was happy, peaceful. I had, you know, created a life that was very meaningful. I loved it. I was happy. So I made a vow that I will be open to joy coming in little by little by little. I mean, I do very deep, intense loving kindness practices. I couldn't do that. My heart was broken. I didn't have a heart to do loving kindness practice for anybody. And that broke my heart even more, right? But what I learned through it was self-compassion is so huge to understand that I am not obligated, no matter the role I have on this planet as a mother. I am not obligated to continue to suffer. And I do not want this pain on myself. I will not do it. So that was a huge undertaking, right? And understanding. And little by little, I became able to catch my mind. As soon as a memory would come, God, the pain, right? As soon as I mean, my goodness, he was 26 years old. The entire house, everywhere I went, the valley, everywhere I drove, I would see him, right? All the memories can come, right? So I would catch the beginning of the trigger and know where it's going to lead. It's going to take me to that pain, to that suffering. Do I want to go there? It took a lot of practice. It took a lot of going the route, falling into the pain, suffering immensely. And again, my heart would open for myself and say, no, no, I don't want that pain. I'm not obligated to have that, because we have these roles. We believe I'm the mother, I'm supposed to. If I love, I'm supposed to suffer, right? So little by little, I understood that where do the triggers, memories take us? What do they do to us? Do I want to go there and practice the muscle of refraining, restraining? And then from there, I also on the side would do rituals, beautiful rituals like plant a tree in his name. I took his ashes everywhere I went in the world. To England and put it in this monastery. To Thailand and put it in the Kwai River. To Japan and put it in the Nara River. So it wasn't like I forgot. Absolutely not. But the love for my own self was very present, and it still is. So people experience grief. My heart goes out to them, but I help them understand the first thing is you're not obligated to carry on with the pain. The second thing is to notice your own pain and allow for it to subside. Don't grab on it, don't build on it, don't, make the story bigger and bigger and bigger. Guilt comes up, anger comes up, I should have, I could have, why didn't I? Of course, all those stages come up. But the heart of it was self-compassion. for me, the mother who has gone through this. I mean, at first I was like angry with the whole world. I would say to people, why are you alive? Wait, why is anybody alive? You know, that kind of a bewilderment, right? What kind of a system is this? If a child dies, the mother should die. You know, so I'm sharing this with you so you know that today, or my peace and happiness is so real and so deep. And it's not because I did an experience. It's actually because I completely experienced the tsunamis and stood firm in the vision of my own happiness, of my own well-being.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. I'm
Manijeh.
I'm crying. Can I invite all of us to do 1 minute meditation with me, please? If we can close our eyes and bring your attention to your heart center. And imagine the vastness here, no boundary, filled with unconditional love is in your heart center. Taking a deep breath in, self-compassion. And out, firmly ground your feet on earth, holding us gracefully. And with the deep breath in, feel free to open your eyes. Wow. Dr. Manijeh, thank you for sharing the real life experience. And it took me to the core of, I want to say, eye of the storm. And the message here fundamentally is no matter what happens to our lives, it is important to be happy within ourselves and to find what happiness is. Sometimes we need to experience tremendous pain, and the more of the joy is more worth savoring. Well, I would love to jump into the next question, and this is for Dr. Keren. And how do we manage situations with people at work? We have corporate employees, corporate workers listening worldwide. And, you know, any relationship can be challenging. And specifically when we're working at home, there's politics, office politics. And I believe that it could be a lack of emotional tools we have. So Dr. Keren, could you guide us?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for the inspiration, Dr. Manijeh. It was really touching and inspiring, so thank you for that. And I can see your joy and energy, so it's amazing. It's, wow, beyond words. So now to your question. Yes, it's challenging times, and we need to deal with, I think, with with our employees, with Zoom fatigue, with problems at home, with the boss, with challenging situation, right? So first of all, we need to be there for our employees. And I think it starts within ourselves. I need to be able to connect to my own feeling, to be present with my emotion, and to be self-compassion toward myself in order to be there for the other. So if I see a challenge, an employee that is stressful right now or doesn't feel well, I need to speak with them and ask them, I see that you're struggling right now. How can I be there for you? What can I do for you? How can I serve you? And come from a servant place, not from solving the problem. Because usually as managers and leaders, we need to solve the problems. We don't have time, we're in the doing mode. But what we really need to learn nowadays is to be present in the right now with our employees, and to see that something doesn't work well, and to speak this situation and to listen deeply to what they need. Because usually when we listen to their needs or to their struggle, the solution will emerge really quickly and will be even accurate. But when we try to figure out and to tell them what to do and to solve the problem, it's even can get worse. So this is the tip that I give. Be there present with your employees. Share, also you can share and be vulnerable. Say, look, maybe I know a colleague of mine that she's a senior manager and she went through a tough divorce. So she shared with them the challenging times that she's going right now. And it gave legitimization to other employees to say, I also feel lonely nowadays. I feel I'm struggling with this. So create a space to be human and to be with this feeling, even if they are challenging, because when we are connecting again in a deeper level and giving it time, it can transform. Otherwise, it won't transform. It will be stuck there and we'll try to work beyond it. And it's connect to what Dr. Manijeh said. We need to go deeper in order to go higher and to be accurate and to be productive and efficient. So in a paradoxical way, we think as managers, no, we don't have time. We have 10 minutes for this meeting. So let's go. But then we close the important thing and we won't give space. So we'll take even more time and we won't get to the accurate solution. But once we pause and be with 5 minutes with the challenging situation, the solution will emerge quickly. So this is actually my tip. Be present with the challenging times. As Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, we can't control the wave, but we can learn to surf. So this is what I think we need to do, learn to surf.
I love that so much. So we learn to serve, and to serve for this particular situation at work, we have to be present and also deep listening practice, right? Deep listening to other people's conflict, problems, and things like that. And as a manager, senior manager, you consult senior manager, it's more important to be in 21st century. You advocate for 21st century, and your PhD is about that. Could you briefly share with us what 21st century means, leadership means?
So what I found in my research that mindful leader means is, first of all, the ability to be present here and now with what we feel. It's the ability to hold tensions, because the modern world, we have a lot of tensions between the long term and the short term, between the employees' needs and the organization needs, between quality and speed. There's a lot of tensions. So in order to solve them nowadays, we need to be present and hold the tension and be in the uncertain times and enable the solution to emerge. Otherwise, we do more of the same, but not from a present place. And it won't be accurate and it won't be creative and innovative. And the third thing is to be as a servant. How can I serve my clients? How can I come from serving my employees to grow and to handle the situation? How can I serve my community? And this is how I see the mindful leadership today. And as I see it, we learned as people, as human, as individuals, and as managers to work with our mind only, to close our emotions. Because, it's really tough to work with the emotion. We are afraid that it will flood us, right? So we learn to close it, and then we're working with our mind, but we are not connected to our own experience. And, as we saw, the heart combines traits like compassion, like passion, like creativity. So we need these traits nowadays. We can't close it. So this is how I see the process nowadays of leaders and individuals. We need to connect deeper and be a complete human being in order to be creative and innovative and to be present. So this is what we need to do nowadays as leaders. Connect to ourselves, listen deeper to ourselves, and from this place, connect and deeper to others and be authentic. And from this place, we need to hold the uncertain time, to be in uncertainty. And this is also a crucial element nowadays for leaders. We need to be ended. And this is what's happening now. Today is the coronavirus, tomorrow it will be a different thing. But this is what we need to learn, to be in uncertain times and have an anchor and a center, and don't let wind of change to move you so quickly. So we can be grounded and come back to our center, even if we don't know the answer right now, and we don't know how it will unfold, but we have our center and guardian. And this is a really crucial thing that we need to learn nowadays.
Dr. Keren, as you talk, I'm seeing an image of planting a tree get grounded in the earth, and no matter what storm or what weather it is, you just stay grounded and center present. And that perhaps is going to be the next new way of leading the organization, being okay with uncertain times, being okay with that. Well, I would like to ask Paul, because you are specializing in couples relationship. And if I may add the grief piece, how do we manage grief effectively within the intimate relationships at home? Also, when we add the component of work stress, how do we combine all these three things and effectively get out of quote storm? Can you guide us, Paul?
I can. And Dr. Manijeh did a beautiful example of the difference between getting bitter or getting better. And part of the way that kids go through emotions would be a great lesson. Like a kid will hurt themselves, or they'll get in a fight and they'll hate each other and they'll scream at each other. And 2 minutes later, they're playing together like best friends because they go through the emotion rather than hold on to the emotion. As we get to be adults, we think that it's mature to hold on to the emotions rather than move through them. And so they show up in our body in all sorts of different ways. So if you think about in relationship, there's 3 key things: availability, capability, and willingness. And if we don't clear up the past, we all get wounded. Some of us get more wounded. I've lost a brother and a father. I have not lost a child. I went through immense pain, and I'm sure that I have no idea what losing a child would be like. And we all have wounds. And the question is, do we want to get bitter or do we want to get better? Do we want to move through them? And to heal them, part of the thing that we need to do is to feel it, to go through it, to cry the tears, to be with the upset. And we try to homogenize our workplace. And Dr. Keren was talking about having feelings, being able to talk about it in the workplace. Because long before I was working with just couples, I traveled around the world as a corporate consultant teaching quality, productivity, and leadership. And the key thing here is if you want people to really be engaged, it's not just from the heart. They need to be engaged, from the head, they need to be engaged from the heart too. So it's all of these things. The head, so we communicate from the head, the heart, and sometimes from the hurt, from our reptile brain. And so we need to know those different things. And the huge difference here, because people confuse leadership and management. Management is about keeping things the same and managing resources and basically producing the same widget. Leadership is about going places you've never gone before. And if you're going to lead, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, if you don't know how to deal with vulnerability, shame, embarrassment, you're going to suck as a leader. You need to be able to do that and demonstrate what it looks like. And that's why I'm so embarrassed by so many of our politicians right now is they're not very good at leaders and leadership and showing what it's like to make mistakes and deal with the shame and not crumble or not blame somebody else. So that's the power. And back to the grieving is if we don't grieve, if we don't heal, we're not available, or very little of us is available. So thank you. And I feel really honored. I love that what my fellow speakers are bringing to the table here. I feel lucky to be in this group.
I agree. I feel also lucky to be with everybody here. And, Paul, that leadership you describe, the difference between the current politicians and people who can really be vulnerable in public about their personal mistakes and shame and all of that. And that, in a way, it's a new way of leading the world, because we're accepting by a role modelship that, hey, there's nothing to be ashamed about being human. Be human, be okay with it. Everybody behind the closed doors have the same, similar issues and things like that, but just different story. Can we now talk about it mindfully? And thanks for sharing that. And Paul, I know you mentioned about your brother passing, and also relationships, and I believe that we grow from the deepest pain, and then we find our like niche for our purpose. Before we move into the audience, I'm going to ask you all, everybody, the speakers, one question. Could you provide our audience one practical tool that we can try today, coping home, family, and mental health? Dr. Manijeh?
Sure. I think really it's not a tool, but a way of being, and that way of being is to be non-judgmental. You know, the addict, the one who's not, you know, the Paul said something very, very, very important. The first question he answered was the word skill. As human beings, we need to have skills to live this life. And one of the most important skills is to have a warm understanding about failure, our failure and others' failure. Also, Dr. Keren has been telling us. So, you know, just stepping down from the righteousness of, you know, I'm right and you're wrong. You're the one who's causing me, you know, all the stress. You're the one who doesn't spend time with me. You're the one who doesn't love me. All these, you know, things about the other person. But then, oh, it's okay to allow people not to be perfect. I think that's a practice, a skill that we all can develop and become good at it, become really good at it. It would be helpful anywhere and everywhere and in all situations. That would be one one guess.
Thank you for that. And Paul, what do you think?
Well, universally, I've taught around the world. I've been really lucky to be able to do that. And there are three things every human being wants when they're communicating. They want to be heard, they want to be understood, and they want to be valued. And it goes in that order: heard, understood, valued. Because if you don't hear me and you don't understand me, I'm pretty sure you don't value me. Now, almost everybody on the call wants that when they talk. And they also want to give that. The big challenge is we confuse understanding with agreement. And so I'm afraid if I understand you, you're going to think that I agree with you. And so what I want you to do is to practice really trying to enter their world so that they feel heard, understood, and valued. And it's like, you'll have a place where you're not listening from your head. You're not listening for the facts or the figures. You're listening for the feeling. And there's a place inside where you actually go, oh, no wonder you're upset. When you really enter their world, no wonder you're upset. No wonder you're angry. If I had that story or had that experience, I'd feel the same way. And then all of a sudden you can dissipate upset in seconds that has been around for years. But people have been desperate to be heard, understood, and valued. Until that happens, they keep fighting for it and they keep getting louder and louder. Because almost every communication is either an act of love or a cry for help. And if we translate it into those two things, it makes it much easier to hear than it's an attack, it's a judgment, it's all the rest of it. The last part is the biggest challenge is when we're desperate to be heard, our behavior almost guarantees that we're not going to be heard. So we have to calm our behavior down and go, this is a precious need. It's a precious request. Would you be willing to listen to me for a minute? You know, could we have 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting? Because, you know, I'm going through a divorce. I'm going through a breakup. I'm going through, you know, my kids are challenging, whatever it is. I just need to be heard human to human. So it's like heard, understood, valued. Before you go and tell them about your opinion, make sure that they feel heard, understood, and valued. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Dr. Keren, what do you think?
Thank you. So I will connect to both of them, and we'll start by connecting with Paul and saying, dare to speak the emotional language. It's not a common language, but dare to show up and say, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I see that you are angry, I see that you are passionate about it. Start with the emotion, not with the solution, and it will transform the situation. It's really a great tip. I work with it with managers, and I see it's challenging for them to do it because it's not a common language. But once they do it, for me, means being a leader, changing the discourse, the dialogue, and then you can transform the environment. And another tip that I want to connect to Dr. Manijeh is self-compassion. It's great, but compassion, it's amazing. But it's, as she said, it starts within ourselves. And I think it's really crucial not to be judgmental, but in the Western world, we are really judgmental. And it's not important, it's not easy to not be judgmental, right? Because we grown like this. So my tip is to start practicing meditation, even 5 minutes a day, being with ourselves, without judgment, see what we feel, be present, grounded. It's kind of a practical tool to help us grow to this space of acceptance, of self-compassion and compassion. So this will be my conclusion to the great thing that my colleagues said.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you for all the wisdom you've shared. It's very poignant how we can implement naming our emotion, also being centered in self-compassion, pour your cup first, and then put oxygen mask second to other people. And also, really mindfully communicating what is, I want to be heard, I want to be validated. And also, Paul, you mentioned one more thing. Okay. Could you answer one more thing? What was the third one?
Heard, understood, and valued.
Thank you.
So those are three very different things, and each one is critical.
Thank you. Heard, understood, and valued. So I would love to shift our focus into our audience, and I invite our audience to open your mics and ask our speakers your particular question, and this would be for 15 minutes. We're here to support you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shanara. I'm calling from Connecticut. So I don't necessarily want to ask a question, but more so comment. I really did enjoy the speakers tonight as far as speaking on emotionality, and it kind of reminds me of the lectures that I provide at the university that I teach from Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. And one of the bigger things that we're discussing right now is personality. And one of the bigger things that ties into personality are the emotions, discussing how emotions are more than just a fluffy type of feeling situation, but there's so many things that tie into our emotions as in terms of our physical appearance or core beliefs, all of that. So I really feel that as far as dealing with this whole COVID crisis situation and just understanding ourselves, our ability to cope, and just taking one day at a time is definitely important to be able to tie into our emotions. I feel that even with this situation and in terms of dealing with this pandemic, it's allowed many more of the time to kind of look at themselves with all the social distancing and the change in what it means to stay in contact with others. It's kind of forcibly put people in the place of having to learn how to be more flexible, more understanding, increasing patience just for the sake of survival. So I really did enjoy everyone really speaking on the importance of emotions and understanding how to manage them on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thanks for that reflection, Shanira. Shanira. Thanks for.
Yep.
Any of our audience have any questions?
I would love to ask one question. It's mostly about two things. One is humility and one is emotion, right? I feel leaders around the world at this point of time are staying away from both of these aspects of a human being. And it has definitely affected the world at large, right? The question from my side is how do you guys as conscious healers and speakers bring more out of this that to out of this in the leaders out there, right? The reason I'm asking this is because humility and emotion is considered to be signs of weakness, and that's something from my perspective that I have seen that as soon as leaders move to accepting humility and emotion, people are considered weak. I would love to sort of understand your take on it.
Thanks, Sharat.
Yeah,
Whoops.
go ahead.
I'll do a quick dive in. Leaders actually follow. If you look at the world has been changed by people like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. And it's like, these were not political figures, even though like Nelson Mandela ended up as president. These were just people on the street that said, this is what's important to me. And they showed the politicians how to lead. And I think that that's how leadership shows up. It's a verb, it's not a noun. You're not designated a leader, you lead by behavior. So in any time when I go into a company, it's who's acting like a leader right now. And do we make it a safe space for humbleness, for emotions, for feeling feelings? Like we have this perception about leadership that, and we're on a call with all women, and it's like, oh, well, women can't lead and be president because they have swings and emotions, like, and men don't. Like we have this crazy idea that emotions are bad. And when we create a safe space for it, that's when the politicians will be okay, or the leaders will be okay showing and dealing with their emotions. So we need to lead from the bottom up at some levels.
Dr. Manijeh?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shara. That's a very good question because, during this pandemic, I've myself have elected months and months and months and months ago, elected not to watch the news so much or listen to all the craziness. I kind of say, well, let them fight it out. I don't want to be contaminated by all these things. But I feel compassion for anybody who's a leader because no matter what they do, they are judged. No matter who it is, what side it is, or what they're doing, how much they're doing, it is a position to be judged. To be a leader is a position to be judged and to have concerns about. So when I talk to, or when I coach, or I work with somebody who is in charge of groups of people, I always, first thing, I resort to their humanity. I talk about their humanity and, like Paul was saying, creating a safe space for them to be there and to, have pooling agenda, conflictive agenda that they have to sort out, and not look at them as the bad person or the good person, but a person who has to reconcile, who has to come up with some very elegant solution for conflicting situations, and to allow them to see that this is hard. What you took on is difficult. It's so to give yourself some room for mistakes, give yourself some room for not being perfect and not being loved. You don't have to be loved by everybody. But if you're shooting for that, then you're definitely going to disappoint some people. You can't win all of it. But then also talking about intentions, higher levels of intentions, higher levels of intention of not harming, of being kind, and being able to be generous, to give, to let go, to have intention that is unconditional concern and regard for all beings. Now that's, like Dr. Karen was saying, these are not easy. It's easy to say, but then skill, to learn the skill that if I cleanse my own mind and heart, if I resort to higher principles, then I will also can practice to align my activity, my decisions, my choices, and check them with these higher, intentions. It's not easy for us. It's easy for us to say be humble. How many, a handful of them are in the history who are humble and great leaders. It's easy to say that, but to allow them to, at least in a training session, in a coaching session, in a groups, to realize that, oh wow, I have a hard thing to do. This is a difficult job I took on. I had the courage to take it on. I wouldn't do it myself, you know. How many people would want to lead? Not too many people, right? 90% are followers because it's easier. Why should they put themselves in those situations? So giving them, like Paul was saying, hearing them, understanding them, and valuing them, and then kind of pointing them towards higher level values where they can practice to do that, learn how to do that, and make a mistake on the way and learn how to do it, and hope that they have enough foundation, goodness foundation within them, that they would actually take on that, raising the bar for them, raising the bar on their own happiness and peacefulness first, and then it can over how would you say, flourish other people and help others. This is what I do usually, just try to raise the bar on people's sense of joy and peacefulness within themselves.
Thank you for that. Dr. Karen, do you have last comment about this question?
Only to strengthen what Dr. Manijeh said, when I work with managers, I'm with them with their challenging emotion, and I'm containing their emotion, I'm giving it place, and then they can transform through this emotion and go forward. So this is to capture what they said, because I think this would help leaders be human and handle their emotion, and to acknowledge it, because otherwise they're stuck by their emotion and they don't understand why they don't move, because they're holding on to the stress. But once you acknowledge it and give them the ability to feel it and be there with them, they can go through this and connect to the broader picture and go with the vision. So it's holding the tension between our personal experience and the broader picture, and then moving forward. So this is to close what the great thing they've said.
Thank you for that, Dr. Karen, and Paul, thank you. And to read one of our comments from Shinera, thank you for rephrasing our dialogue here. Leadership means understanding the pack. Emotional availability is everything, humbling, and also it's important to give myself grace and letting my actions be intentional and mindful. And the humility part, I believe, when we surrender to the unknown, also beyond our ego, beyond ourselves, and be okay with, however people judge us and things like that, setting a pure intention to serve, servant leadership, and let the rest just follow on your lap, and just enjoy the ride. That's how I view leadership. And we are going to meet next month once more with different speakers from different parts of the world. And today I would love to thank our sacred speaker, Dr. Manijeh and Paul and Dr. Keren for showing up here. So everybody, if you've enjoyed our dialogue, please check us out on Life of Emerald. And we have a program designed for you to build inner happiness easily in 30 days. In the 30-Day Happiness Premium Program, we host world-renowned Stanford professor, Dr. Fred Luskin, and Tohoku's University professor, Dr. Manijeh. They elaborate further about the healthy benefits of forgiveness and the scientific benefits of meditation. The program is available now at lifeofemerald.com/all-classes. Sign up before April 30. The value goes up on May 1st. Now, Dr. Keren can be reached at wisdom2lead.co, and Paul can be reached at arguelesslovemore.com. And he has a book out, Argue Less, Love More. Thanks, Paul. And Dr. Manijeh, how can we follow you? How do we find you?
So you can check out one of my websites. It's perfectlyhere.org, perfect, LYHERE.org. That's where I teach all of my courses, classes, and then Mindful Business Institute is what I do with the corporate world. YouTube channel, Dr. Matagi. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul and Dr. Keren, could you share a little bit about how we follow you online?
Okay, argue less, love more. I also have what I call the Courageous Love Show that it happens Thursday nights and Sundays. So that's sort of a podcast that they can follow. And one last quick thing that is, if you want to transform the environment in an organization, start by celebrating mistakes. When you celebrate mistakes, you create a safe environment throughout the whole place if it comes from the top down. So that's just a quick tip. And then argue less, love more, and find me on Facebook. I'm there all the time. Too much.
Thank you. Dr. Keren, how do we find you?
So I have a podcast called Mind Your Leadership. So you can find me on the podcast. And also on LinkedIn and Facebook, Wisdom to Lead or Keren Suk, and Instagram, on the social media.
Cool. Thanks, audience share for showing up, Shinera for showing up, Dominique for showing up as well. Dominique has been our speaker in the previous summit. So thanks everyone for your participation. I'd like to especially thank our sacred speakers, Dr. Keren, Paul, and Dr. Manijeh for sharing your expertise with us. Take care, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.